Hello and welcome to Powered by Intuition. My name is Brettney Perr, and Powered by Intuition is a weekly podcast where I kind of intuit or distill what's kind of going on in the week and create a teaching or guidance on a situation that you may or may not be going through at this point in time. My guess is that when you are watching this, and this is my intention for this podcast, when you're watching or listening to this, it is going to be at the time that you need it. The wisdom that is contained herein is something that can be used at any point in time, even though I do center it around current events or current happenings. So even if you're listening to this 10 years down the line, you're like, wow, that was 10 years ago. Just understand that the insights and the information or the core understandings that come from this are things that will help and support you wherever you are in your life. So to dive in, it's been an interesting week. I've been pissing off people, influencers, and that's fine. A lot of it's been around being like, hey, you might want to change that. That's not quite right. And block. So that's been very entertaining for me. And since that's been a thing, I'm like, all right, well, cool. Let's go for it. One of the most interesting things or amusing things that happened as of late is there is a person who posted a video where they are saying or encouraging people to start a nonprofit right at this time where, SNAP benefits are running out and people are going to need food resources. These might be your neighbors. These might be your friends. And then they go through like these 3 easy steps to create a nonprofit. You have to know what the nonprofit's about. They give the phrase that you use. Then you get to set up your EIN, and then you can get food resources from different restaurants. And yay, it's just that simple. And I'm sitting here. A little backstory on me. I've been on the board of a nonprofit. I supported a friend with their nonprofit, ultimately failed. We'll get into details of that as I share on this. I've also worked for business accelerators. I've met VCs of VCs. I did a lot of research on businesses. I started a corporation, shuttered a corporation. I know several different business strategies. So there's a low-level one, which I'm part of Laurel Langmeyer's The Big Table. If you want to know more about that, let me know. Just type it in the comments. And then The Big Table, basically, it's a great group to be a part of if you're interested in business or starting a business, or you have a business and you need more support, like you need a group of people to support you on your business and you want to hit that first $1 million. The Big Table is something that you might want to join. Like, it's not the top level thing. It's not billionaire stuff. It's like get your first $1 million sort of stuff. Okay. Don't expect anything outside of that. It's all about the people in the group and then the training, the resources that you have. So cycling back into the nonprofit thing, as I said, I've actually partnered and supported many nonprofits. I've done this since I was 13. Started with the Challenger League as a kid, supporting other kids in being able to do, like, it was baseball. And so disabled individuals to participate in baseball and sports and have fun. And it was such an eye-opening learning experience. So I have no stigma against the disabled, and I'm so thankful and grateful. That was one of the best things that my mother pushed me into, was supporting the Challenger League. But since then, like, that has been a staple in my life. That plugged in to my psyche and my consciousness, how important it is to give forward in our society and in our communities. And, so it is on my heart for people to, if they're interested in starting nonprofits, to know what goes into it so that there isn't that disappointment that shuts them down or scares them away. because nonprofits are not easy. And this person's just like, yeah, it's just so easy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You have no idea what you're talking about. Oh my effing G, you have no idea what you are saying. Nonprofits are dramatically harder than a normal business. Dramatically harder. Like, that is why they are heart, soul, and passion, and you have to be on fire for it, know how to draft like plans for grants, know how to go for grants. You need a grant writer, you need funding. It's best if you're independently wealthy or, have a significant amount of savings. It's challenging. It is really not easy. And, when my friend and collaborator for the nonprofit that I was on the board of, when they decided to shut it down, it really kind of drove home that this is something for those who are connected to money or are independently wealthy, and they are really designed as tax shelters. When you know intimately the hurdles, the compliance, the paperwork, how much you have to hustle to fundraise. If you don't have a group of people around you that are already on fire and willing to support it, time to think again. Okay. Because it's challenging. So I do highly suggest partnering with a nonprofit, and that content creator, obviously, as I went through the comments, pontificated a lot of BS, which is like, well, I don't know. You need to do your research. And it's like, you're sitting here acting like an authority online, but yet you have no credibility because you can't answer these questions. And then finally I saw a question where someone was like, did you actually start a nonprofit or are you partnering? And she's like, I partnered with two. And it's like, don't tell people to do something when you haven't done it yourself, or at least attempted it yourself, right? And that was very glaring to me, like that. As she was talking, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, complete horror. And I even commented, I was like, nonprofits are extremely hard to make. Like, what are you talking about? Not to mention the government shut down. You're not going to be filing for a nonprofit. It's going to be severely delayed. Like, what is she talking about? And then, yeah, and then they responded with, well, I just want to inspire people. I'm like, I'm all for inspiring people, but you're setting them up for disappointment. That is a disservice to people at this point in time. That is not helpful. That actually hinders and harms, because once they see the mountain of paperwork it takes money. It definitely takes money to start a nonprofit, to register with the government, to register with your state. And you have to have board members. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not this, it's so easy. Just sign up for an EIN and just do this and just do this. It's so simple and straightforward. No, it's not. It's actually very convoluted. The paperwork is not fun to go through. Thank you so. Oh, what? Ew. Oh, that needs to be blocked. Yuck. Okay. Wow. Yikes. That's disgusting. Cool. Oh my goodness. Anyways, trolls aplenty. But add that. Okay. So, that is so weird. Anyways, going on with that. When that situation happened, I was just like, what is this person doing? What is going on? Like, why would you tell people to do that when your experience and expertise is in this? And that is the route that really is most optimally taken, unless, someone's in an area where there is a severe deficit, which there is. there are areas that there's a severe deficit and a need for people to create nonprofits. But it takes 2 weeks to years to be able to be a tax-exempt nonprofit. And so that was absolutely wild. So within that situation, like, it just baffled my mind. I'm like, why would someone sit here spouting off BS and acting like they're an authority in something when they're not? And I realized, like, this is something that happens so often with influencers where, like, yes, this person has knowledge, insight, and authority in partnerships. Why would they not go that route? Why would they not do the optimal support in that route? Why would they bring people into a space where they're being primed to be, like, literally primed to be defeated? That was just, like, so inappropriate. But we do that stuff. Like teenagers. My teenager. Hi, Alex. How they act like they know everything, and they don't. But it was like a carry-on of that. But as I reflected on that some more, and, after I had made 2 comments where I'm like, "Look, I've been on the board of nonprofits, and I know a little more than this person about them." They just blocked me. So I'm like, "Fine, I'm still gonna do a video." So I got the video and did a cut in with that where I'm discussing this. And so, within that, I reflected on the coaching industry because, just asking the question, what's up with this false authority? Like, what the heck? Why is this going on? This is ridiculous. Like, it just makes them, to those who know, it makes them look inept. But to those who don't, they may fall for it because of the lack of insight and research and experience. So always vet your sources. Like, when I looked in the comments and I saw she was like, "No, I haven't started a nonprofit," I would have just been like, "Okay, well, that's ridiculous. That makes them look really bad." Even though they came from a place of good intentions, but good intentions pave the road to hell. That's the lovely phrase that happens there. So, given that situation, it brought up coaching stuff. And something else that people might not know about me is that I have been in the coaching field for quite a while. Have I been a successful coach? No, but you can throw a rock and hit a program on the internet that'll teach you everything on how to be a coach and how to make money as a coach. And they don't work. Testimony to that. And that's been an interesting thing, but they're a dime a dozen. And they run on this idea of, like, one size fits all, that their life experience is the only life experience out there. And that sometimes they don't even have the experience. They're just faking it until they make it, which is such a disservice to people because it's harmful. Because that rhetoric, and this is what, like, the first thing they teach people in coaching is, if it fails, they blame the person for it instead of being responsible and be like, let's figure out something else. Maybe there is, maybe there's something else I could do, or maybe I can have a friend support them if my program's not working. There's none of that. There is this postulating as an authority and being like, well, if it didn't work, obviously you didn't do it right. Listen, I'm a Black woman and a lot of these coaches are white. Okay. Let's just put that out there. Let's just be clear with that. It's there's a little higher bar no matter how good you are for a person of this type to really make it in the industry. And so, even though I've gotten amazing feedback from clients, it has been very challenging to get clients. And that's just, I'm okay with that. I move on. I have different other things that I can focus on. But there was that time because I originally had and had to heal from this, the propensity to blame myself on for everything that went wrong. For everything because of narcissistic tendencies and narcissistic relationships that I had to experience through growing up and marrying someone that fit that perfect template. And so being able to navigate those and breaking free of them just really served and supported in these aspects where, I had to really get into my identity to really know myself. And once I could know myself, I could begin to see people for who they actually are. And I shifted from, and this is the section where it's like, here's how you kind of break free from these paradigms. And this is actually what all that coaching stuff supported me in not only developing my own programs that hopefully will support a majority of people. It's not going to support everybody. I can realize and understand that I am not going to support everyone. And I do have people around me that I'm like, hey, are you available to support this person? Because I cannot. Like, it's that easy to acknowledge that, hey, this is not my wheelhouse. I am not able to support this person. I need someone else in the mix to step in. And I have done that before. That's integrity for me. And integrity is one of my main values, even though I'm not 100% in integrity, right? That's just being human. That's just being real. Integrity is doing your best to be in integrity, to do what you say, to have the experience to back up what you say, to practice what you preach, right? Hopefully you're on board with me on that. So when it comes to this situation and seeing these lacks or integrity leaks, they become easier to spot the more you know yourself and the more you can see others for who they are. And that shift comes from looking at behaviors and behavior patterns. So I'm going to bring up a very, another challenging subject for people that seems to be like just really ruffling some feathers. But there is a candidate in Maine, a gentleman who kind of came out from nowhere. And, first I saw this guy was like an influencer, a major influencer was like, hey, who's this guy? Shows a clip and then it's like, yeah, this is a better candidate, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, there was just something was off about that clip. There was just something something just didn't seem right. My spidey senses are tingling. Okay. And I was just like, I'm going to hold off on this because if something's not right, let's see what happens. And come to find out that person has a suspicious tattoo. And I was like, okay. And a lot of people are saying, I've never seen that symbol before. If you've seen Indiana Jones, and I believe it's the Raiders of the Lost Ark, you've seen that symbol. You've seen it. You might not quite remember seeing it, but you see it on the hats, especially if you watch that in theaters. So, yeah, there is that. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's see what else comes up. all right, tattoos, there's an excuse for that. Oh, he got it with his buddies. He was drunk in Croatia, whatever, whatever, whatever. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. You're able to get that in Croatia, huh? Then there was the next thing of seeing, the Reddit posts, which were very disparaging. And those were expunged, but of course, the internet is forever. So be careful what you put on the internet, folks. And that stuff came up, and I was like, what has he done to make amends? Okay, he gives platitudes, more platitudes, more just like, yeah, I was younger, I blah blah blah. Okay, talk is cheap. And then, he got that cover up tattoo. I'm gonna I'm gonna keep my mouth shut about some things about that. I, I'm just there's some things about that. I'm just gonna point out the obvious. Uh, if you look at the cover up, the original tattoo is peeking out. The sides, the bones at the bottom are peeking out. I don't know of any decent tattoo artist that has any shred of self-worth that would allow that to happen, because it's kind of like weird on the piece. I'm not sure about advances in doing color over a black tattoo, even though it was faded. Those are some things that I am going to let a tattoo artist weigh in on. But in those images, you can look at his arm, and well, actually, when I saw the new tattoo, I was like, is this MF or DUMB or something? Like, how can you make another mistake like that? And what do I mean by that? It looks like a wolf. That was the first thing that I saw. It's a wolf. And then a Celtic knot. I'm like, that is really an awkward tattoo. And doesn't the wolf have some connections with the same subject matter of concern as the original tattoo? So I do a quick look, and I'm like, oh yeah, Adolf called himself the wolf, and his headquarters, the Wolf Lair. Huh. Really? Is this guy like, either he's the bearer of bad choices, which really doesn't make a good candidate, or yeah. Yeah. And then he has another tattoo of 1919. And you can look that one up. And then when you look at the Celtic cross, which is the origin for the infamous symbol, I'm like, there's too many coincidences to not be to try to offset or off right. And of course, there's always going to be an excuse or an explanation. But this time that excuse came with, oh, well, they're trying to attack me, a victimized stance towards the end, and then a rallying call. So instead of addressing it, or instead of doing a behavior, an action, a credible action, a complete and credible action to make amends that is thought out, that is considerate, it's like the dude just dug himself deeper. And that is extremely suspicious. And it's extremely suspicious that people are buying into the BS instead of going, this guy needs to actually do something to make amends. Covering up a tattoo was something that is just as well, not exactly as suspicious, but it's more suspicious being the original tattoo of what it was, and the considerations and concerns around that original tattoo, and then covering it up with something that is still a dog whistle, let's call it that. And then seeing his explanation, well, it's about my dogs. Sir, there is one dog that looks like a wolf on that. So I'm not taking bait on the BS. And that's a way that people can show you who they are. Because sometimes they will have the platitudes, they'll be charismatic. The influencer that I was speaking of earlier, very charismatic, acted like it was really easy. It's easy to buy into that. It's not easy. And so, how do we get through that? Especially when you're at the beginning stages of trying to weed through the deception and deceptive practices. So it comes to really taking your time to look into things, getting curious, remaining curious, asking the questions of, does this make sense? So for the influencer, encouraging people to create a nonprofit while the government shut down, does that make sense? No, that does not make any sense at all, because you're not going to get approved very soon. It's going to be probably delayed. So that was very curious, right? There's something wrong here. And then, with that one candidate, it's like, what other things are surrounding the context? What else has come up? And sounds like a Manchurian candidate in my consideration of things. And I think there are a couple of Manchurian candidates that are out there right now, because yeah, it's an interesting situation, kerfuffle. But just remember, the more you know yourself, the more you're going to be able to actually know others and see others for who they are. Don't buy into the platitudes. Look at their behaviors, their actions. What are they accomplishing? What are they achieving? What are they doing to make amends for any misgivings of the past? So with a person that spoke up on my post about addressing this candidate, they were like, oh yeah, well, did some passive aggressive stuff. I just ignored it. And, I just went into, there's just too much to ignore it, right? And I'm calling this the apologetic Olympics. And me coming out of, a domestic violence situation and dealing with emotional and psychological abusive situations. To be clear on that. And yes, it does qualify under DV. We can have discussions around that if you guys want more discussion on that. But it's like the platitudes. You're constantly fed these platitudes and then beaten down with their self-victimhood. You can't ask for any, you can't ask for them to work on themselves because they self-victimize immediately. So one example that I'm going to share, because this is top of mind. It's just like washing your hands after going to the bathroom, and that individual would be like, hey, you need to wash your hands after using the restroom. And they turn around and they're like, are you calling my member dirty? And I'm like, this is basic hygiene. Don't victimize yourself for being requested to wash your hands to support the household on being healthy and hygienic. That is just base level stuff. But that's how they think, right? It's like you make a request And they victimize themselves. Oh, the establishment is going after me. Like, this is politics. If you can't take the heat, get out of the fire. That's why I'm not in politics. Like, that just showed a lot of that individual's character. And I've done Postmates deliveries to a politician before. Had a very nice, very big property, but they had some very well trained, very proficient guards. And those guards took the order. Celebrities will meet you at the door. Politicians typically won't. And probably shouldn't, given, situations of what's happened as of late. So behaviors matter more than platitudes. Harkening back to, like, what have they actually done? The influencer, what have they actually done? Did they actually make a nonprofit? No. Okay, not credible. They can't help anybody. They weren't helping anybody in the chat. They were just postulating. And the other guy, the candidate, within consideration of, this was with what's being covered, the subject matter, what has he done to make amends? And so, harkening back to responding to my friend, I was like, this dude could actually take action. He could go to groups when it comes to SA or DV. Go to a group. And if he's dealing with PTSD, as he says he has, that would just support him all the more. Dude, hold on. Gotta do this thing over here. But if he's truly a grassroots guy and is truly like, hey, I'm not that guy anymore, go to these groups. Ask them what they need. Get a bill drafted and ready to sign, or even just put that bill forward. But there needs to be credible action. Stop buying into the platitudes, the nice words, things that resonate with you. It's easy. Go on to AI. AI's got that stuff dialed in. That's why people are having relationships with something that doesn't actually exist, that is not tangible in the real world. Because of platitudes, because of nice, fancy words. And it's very shocking to see so many people fall for it. Instead of ruling on the side of skepticism or knowledge, understanding, and insight. Because it's harder to know yourself than to believe a lie, apparently. Seems like a lot of people really want to grasp onto something instead of getting into their own power and knowing who they are and knowing what they're capable of. So there's been something that I've been meaning to do, which has been kind of an amusement for me as of late, where there's a lot of people that profess to have abilities. And now is the time to use them. Now is the time to share and showcase those publicly. But chances are it's all fantasy for most people. Granted, there's some people that do. But chances are a lot of it's fantasy. And we got to stop using fantasy as a way to escape ourselves, escape dealing with situations, and escape responsibility. We need to start stepping into our real power and what that means. What that means to be in our sovereignty. What that means to get to know ourselves. Get to know those darker unknown spots within us. Those spots that we've maybe hid under the rug, those skeletons in the closet, and come clean and open up about these things. Because when we open up about these things, they lose power. And we rise. So I don't know if that's served and supported you. If it has, would love to hear you mention in the chat on what you got from this, and would love to see you next week. So I hope you all have a good one, and thank you for joining in. Bye.